My name is Tevin Singei, and I am a first-year student from Kenya in the economics department here at Princeton. Thank you so much for joining us today for this panel discussion, Empowering the Next Generation of African Entrepreneurs. Our moderator for the session is our own Jailany Thiaw. Jailany grew up in Moro, Senegal, and then Eugene, Oregon, before starting his undergraduate career in Princeton's Mechanical and Aerospace Engineering department. Now a junior, he has been a student leader for several organizations, including the Black Men's Association and the Africa Students Association, before he founded the Hip Hop Empowerment Conference in the fall of 2019. Beyond Princeton, Jailany has spent the past 2 summers as an analyst at McKinsey & Company, working in high tech as well as higher education. In addition to his experience as a community builder and consultant, Jailany is currently the director of portfolio for Prospect Student Ventures, Princeton's first student-run VC firm, and in the fall of 2020, joined 50 Years VC's research committee on anti-racist ventures. Currently, Jailany is the CEO and co-founder of an early-stage ed tech startup, Upscale, where he and his team aim to democratize access to upward mobility through peer-to-peer career preparation. Over to you, Jailany.
Hey, Tevin, thank you so much for that introduction. And thank you to the whole Africa Summit team for putting this together. I've been following your guys' work for a while now, and every year you guys are producing a super, super high standard of excellence in the way that you're performing and providing context. So thank you guys. I'm super, super excited and honored to be hosting this conversation, not only because I'm a personal fan of these entrepreneurs that we have here, but because I think that there's a real chance here to inspire the next generation of young entrepreneurs that will be developing both on the continent as well as internationally. 2020 was a tumultuous year for Africa and for the world in both the social, political, and economic sense. It posed many challenges, many changes. Of those things, what really stood out was 2 things, I would say. I think we saw for the first time that huge institutions which governed continents and nations were really composed of people, and people having to solve problems that were unprecedented and we were facing for the first time. The other thing that it showed us is that there are deep cracks in the way that our institutions function and a lot of problems that need to be tackled. For young entrepreneurs, for young problem solvers coming up, what this meant was there's a lot of problems to be tackled here and space for people, everyday people like you and me, to go and take action on those problems, to overcome the challenges that we're facing and to build new models and new institutions which can serve our people. Without further ado, I'd like to bring in 2 of our panelists who are taking charge in a similar fashion and are reshaping both their nations and the continent. Firstly, I'd like to bring to the stage the founder of iFunza, based in Kenya, Martin Kariithi. Martin is a Williams College alum, where he studied mathematics and economics. After graduating, he spent over 13 years working in data analytics within the financial service industry, as well as in management consulting. Most recently, he worked as a credit portfolio strategist and financial economist at Fannie Mae in Washington, D.C. Starting in 2016, however, Martin brought his wealth of analytic experience to the world of entrepreneurship and started 2 companies over the course of 2 years. First was Deep Alpha Capital, and second was Data Scientifics. In 2019, however, Martin shifted again and started his 3rd company, iFunza, a parent-teacher engagement platform that helps key stakeholders in the education ecosystem collaborate and achieve better outcomes. Since its inception, iFunza has now grown to over 1,500 schools. They operate in 20 countries and have helped serve over 250,000 teachers as well as student parents. Martin is also the busy parent himself of 2 young daughters who are the inspiration for co-founding iFunza. Thank you so much, Martin, for being with us today and volunteering your time. And I'm imagining all the virtual applause that we would get if we were in person. The second panelist, which I'd like to welcome up to the stage, is Fela Akinse. Fela graduated from the University of Lagos before entering the world of business as an analyst, a social brand ambassador, and an environmental scientist. In 2019, however, Fela founded his own company, Sulubata, which is reinventing interchangeable shoe wear using recycled materials in order to help people and the planet. Since they've launched, they gained significant traction within the space of 2 years and have been featured in numerous award shows, magazines, and pitch competitions. Among such recognitions, they were nominated as a World Economic Forum Global Shaper in 2020 and were distinguished by Africa Moves as one of the continent's 100 most promising startups. In addition, they've been distinguished by the UK government's Department for International Trade, as well as TEDx and the UN. Fela himself was titled a Business Person of the Year and was a winner of Africa's 35 Young Innovators Award, both distinguished by the Entrepreneur Africa Awards in 2019. We are super lucky to be hosting these incredible founders here with us today. And without further ado, thank you so much, Fela and Martin, for being with us again. A virtual round of applause that you can imagine happening.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I want to jump right into things here. And I think that the best way to do it is to begin to understand both of your stories. And so maybe, Martin, I'd love to start with you. Could you take us back to the moment right before you were starting your current company, iFunza? You know, it seemed like you're working a few other more traditional jobs in the world of business. If you could describe to us kind of your day-to-day and some of the things that you were seeing just before you entered this new venture.
So I like to think of entrepreneurship as a journey where you kind of look for problems that are decent sized problems in the world that people are facing, and you try to find a solution to those problems. So I had already gotten into previous ventures where I had kind of felt the right market sensing in terms of the need for it. And I felt that I was in a good position to provide that service or that market need, fill that gap. And it's funny because that's how the two other companies I started out, that was the cadence that I followed, right? Essentially what I felt, what I felt was a market need, and I moved in to try and serve it. But with iFunza is very different because it started out as the joy of parenthood. So I didn't even think of it as a company. So it started out as the joy of parenthood. So once I got my two girls, I really enjoyed parenthood, and I really enjoyed the process of watching them learn and kind of progress in life. You know, kind of they're the small versions of you, and you see them kind of grow and attain these skills. And I became very interested in parent involvement in education, from the early education up to, you know, I guess we can say up to, you know, past high school, up to high school. Then from there, you know, I don't know how much, you know, in terms of involvement, you kind of have to be, a parent would have, because as the kids grow older, they become more or less independent. So for me, I started out with looking at this love of education and the love of solving problems that parents face in being part of their child's education. So once I had seen that process and fallen in love with that process, I started thinking of number one, how many people are facing these similar situations as me, who would love to be engaged in their child's education, and are there solutions in the market? Is it something that we can work around improving that? Given who I am, given my background, and of course my team, I cannot stress the importance of a really good team. Given my team and myself's background, how can we most effectively have an impact in this space? So it's funny because in all cases I followed fundamentals in terms of making the decision to enter a certain industry or a certain business. But with iFunza, it kind of really found me, so to speak. And I've kind of run with it from there. You know, it's been a very interesting journey so far.
Yeah, wonderful. And it sounds like you're beginning to kind of answer this already, but was it something you expected starting this company, or was it really just out of the blue, did not see this coming? Had you ever envisioned yourself as an entrepreneur before you began this company?
No, I envisioned myself as an entrepreneur before this. My entrepreneurial journey starts in 2000 and I think 7 or 8. I started a company called Auto Dispatch Network. That was the first time that, so when I first got out of college, I started working as a technology industry analyst. So I was analyzing technology companies. And I felt that at a certain point that I could really, it's funny, as an analyst, you think you're seeing everything, but you're really not seeing a lot of the inside stuff that's going on in the operations. So at that time, I was really young. I was, I think, 3 years out of college. I started this company, Auto Dispatch Network, and I thought it was going to be awesome. It did not do well. I think the fundamentals were right because I was thinking of logistics based on the phone. It was really early. So it was really early. It was only several years later would phone-based logistics kind of like really pick up as a thing. But starting from back then, I always thought, oh, I can create something of value and I can provide value based on a gap I'm seeing on the market. So back then I had all my fundamentals right. I thought there's definitely a gap. This was right after the launch of the iPhone in 2008. And I was thinking there's definitely going to be a market for logistics that's phone to phone based. But, you know, again, even if you have the right logical steps, timing is very important. You can always run into a situation where you think you can see that, okay, this is where an industry is going. This is where a problem is in terms of usage. This is where an industry is going, but you might not get the timing right. Back then, this was 08, 09, when I was running Auto Dispatch Network. And back then, the smartphones had started to proliferate, but the application of them was not yet around services that are ordering services or something like, if you think of Uber or Takeout. It's funny that now so many companies are using that as a system. But anyway, so I always thought that I could create some value from even back then. But the question was finding the right problem, I guess, to solve. And that is a journey. You don't just kind of, I think that's a journey to finding the actual problem that you will be working to solve. And you need to experience it.
Absolutely. And you made a couple of really great points that I want to come back to, but Fela, let me bring you into this conversation. Could you walk us through how your business came about in your life and the problems that you are seeing and where you are today?
Yeah, thank you so much. I guess you can hear me.
Yeah, you're coming through great.
All right, yeah, so personally, what should I say? When I was in school, when I was at the University of Lagos, I think I see myself more as a maker. I like to make things, and I don't like the norm. I do not like usual things. I always like to do things in a better way. So I used to spell, like I could spell a lot, like I had very great talents. I actually won a lot of awards. But then by the time we got to university, I realized that there was not like this. And so I tried to organize one at the University of Lagos. And so then I also got a lot of scholarships then. I got about 7. So I was getting a lot of funds. And I thought, okay, I could use this to start this scholarship competition. Spelling competition. And by the time I commenced, I realized I was funding the whole event. I was funding the whole event with my money. And eventually, I realized that by the second one we wanted to do, it was all lost because, in fact, we all had people that have promised us that, okay, do the first one. By the second time, we are going to fund the rest. So I realized that I started doing something like a non-profit business because I was losing. In fact, the second one was not organized. It wasn't done. And what happened was I lost more than enough than the first one we did. And it was so really painful. And so for me, I think that was my first lesson, that if you're an NGO, do an NGO. If you want to make money out of something, have serious plans to make money out of it. Now, the problem is that when I realized all of these things, I had promises. A lot of people promised they were going to fund it, and anyway, it didn't come true. So that was one of my hardest lessons. And what I did then was, because people paid to enter the competition, I think they paid about $4 or $5 to get into the competition. And so we had aspirations that wanted about 1,000 people to attend, and would need more than enough sponsors. But then I told my teammates that we have to refund these guys money. And my teammates said, no, don't tell them that. Don't tell them we have postponed it to another time and you will do it later on. But then I felt like these are people and this is their money. And so you cannot joke with people's money. And so one major thing I must point out is that integrity is really key in whatever you're doing. And so if you tell people otherwise and they get to find out, then they might ruin who you are. Let's even forget entrepreneurship. Let's even talk about even politics or some other higher positions. They will always remember you for what you've done wrong, even some 20 years ago. Now, beyond that, so we refunded everybody. And some people still kept coming to me that, why would you refund our money? Some people didn't collect the money. Some people returned the money. Say, I don't want the money. I just want to participate in the competition. I love the competition. And that is the joy I wanted to create. Now, going forward, beyond school, Sulubata as a whole didn't commence as how will I say it? It didn't commence as anything serious. So what happened was, I bought some shoes in the market, one local market in Lagos here. I bought the shoes and they were sandals in one market, and I wore it. And I went to my friend's house, and my friend's brother asked me that, where do you want to make this shoe? My friend just signaled to me to tell him that yes. So I told him yes. So he said, okay, I would need like 3 of it. Oh, okay. So he took the guy's money. He took his money. We said that, but you have to pay before you get the shoes. So he took his money. We went to the market, and so he bought. And so that started spreading in the family, and everybody started buying gradually. So we were buying, we were retailing. But then eventually, so we could make a lot of mouths about what we're selling that, man. So we're doing leather. We're doing leather products then, and products were not standardized, and it was a big problem for us then. And so people were failing. Some people just call you and tell you that, man, with all of the mouths you made, these shoes got spoiled even on the road, and a lot of terrible feedbacks. And so it was then I started. I told my mates that, I think this is what's going to happen. I think we start producing our own shoes and start selling them. And so for me, I've always believed in quality, high grade stuffs. I believe, and that's why I believe that Apple still sells, even beyond the products beyond just the value you're getting, the aesthetics, the intentionality is there. Like if you do fake things or inferior products, you will not really last in the market. And so for us then, we're selling leather products, and what we said was that what we're going to do is that people are going to pay before they get their orders. And like, so in Nigeria then, the norm was that you deliver the product before I pay you. And so with us, we didn't have any money. And so what we told them that you have to pay for this before you get the product. If you don't like the product, we are going to refund you. We're going to refund your money to you. But what we do is that if you don't like the product, we can remake for you like twice. And so what we do is that we charge what's it called? We charge the price of the shoe like thrice of the price of the shoe. So that costs for any kind of losses. That if you return the shoes or if you want to remake, we still have some money to remake the shoes from you. So we realized that some e-commerce platforms accommodated a kind of model where people buy things and they pay on delivery. And it was a problem. So we realized that those e-commerce platforms later ran down because they could not sustain that model. Because eventually, when we were very lenient with people, they were saying, what they said was, okay, I want to see the shoe before I pay. And for every time you make the shoes, let's say you send the shoes on maybe some hundreds of kilometers and they see the shoe. By the time they see the shoe, some people might say they don't like it. Some people might say, I've traveled. Now, if you travel when I've spent my money for something, then that's a big problem. Now, if you've paid for the product, you will not travel. And so it's one model we incorporated then that people get to. And what we're doing was that we improved on our brand, on the aesthetics of the product, that before anybody returns this shoe, that means maybe that's a very, very unrealistic situation, but we tend to deliver back to what it was called order. Now, beyond that, beyond the leather products, so I had worked as an environmental scientist.
That's right.
I worked as an environmental scientist, and I feel like I really I have very deep what's called knowledge of this body background, and so it was just about a lot of dots connecting. And for me, I make a lot of research, and I feel like this should also apply to young entrepreneurs. You need to really make your research in the market before you jump into what you're doing. Now, I was telling one of my friends like some 3 days ago that now, so she was saying that everybody's time will come. And I said, well, yes, possibly, but some people's time might not come. Now, and I gave her an instance of comparing the Iron Age with the 21st century. If you are doing something in the Iron Age and you are believing your time will come in by not doing something in the 21st century, then you are doing something wrong. Your time will never come.
Right.
So it was, for me, all of those things, I felt like you need to make your own background research. You need to see, okay, like this decade is a decade of sustainability. From 2010 to 2030 is a decade of sustainability. And so if you don't get the gist, and what people are really buying are things like health tech, clean tech solutions, circular solutions. And if you are not in that field or in related fields, then you might not even be able to readily access some funds or be able to. So it's you need to think in that particular manner. And so for me, it's really about thinking about all of these things before starting this business. So when I had doing was that we phased out our leather products. Phased them out, and we started making shoes from recycled plastic waste. So I have a strong background in environmental science, and as a business analyst, I feel like a lot of dots were just connecting. A lot of dots. I feel like the creativity part of it is also very important, but I feel like a lot of dots, you need to also connect a lot of dots.
Absolutely.
If we're able to settle well, then I feel like we're going to realize a lot of answers to our questions. Thank you.
Fantastic. Yeah, and that's a point that I want to expand on there, because it sounds like for both you and Martin, the problem that you faced was something that you almost ran into, or it almost ran into you, right? Martin, it was something that you had observed within your own daughter's education journey. And Fela, for you, it sounded like you bought a store from a market and pretty quickly almost were thrown into selling and remaking these shoes for folks in your family. But the next step, and how do you actually operationalize or create a solution around that problem, is just like you said, Fela, almost having to really intentionally connect those dots. And so I'd be curious to just open that up to both of our panelists. You know, as you think about those first few steps in creating your business, what were the things that you had to be incredibly intentional about? And maybe, we can kind of go back and forth, starting with Martin and Fela in a minute or so. What were your first few steps to begin to feel you were heading towards product market fit or beginning to build some real traction?
For me, I think you have to be agile and be prepared to be disappointed. Your MVP will be very disappointing. When I look back at it, I think, oh, I can't believe we actually had this product out in the market. But we thought that that was a perfect product. We thought that it was solving a big problem. But to be honest, it was our interpretation of the problem. It was not necessarily how what the ultimate solution is. We had a good vantage point because we were building for ourselves, in the sense that we were parents, we were building for a product that we would enjoy and we would use, but we were not close to what we are right now, and that is the result of listening to the customer. So each iteration has come about from listening and iterating. So that is baked into every part of our cycle, from development to from the actual product development to the actual product distribution. We really take in the information to ensure that there's a two-way channel, because when you're building a product, you really have to be very good at listening to how it should improve, very good at listening to how you should, what changes you need to make, and you need to be able to implement them quickly and quickly, and not necessarily the perfect solution, but a good enough solution that is actually that you can now push back out to the market to get their feedback on. So what I'd say is, in terms of entry, start small, start with something manageable, but be willing to listen.
Yeah.
When I started off, I thought that but of course, because of just the normal roller coaster of human emotions, when you're releasing your first product, you'll think that, okay, this is a perfect product that I'm releasing into the world. But more likely than not, you will have to iterate on it. But that's from the perspective of building a software solution.
Yeah.
But, I'd love to hear what Phil has to say in terms of how you get from the idea stage, in the sense of this is what we think is the product, to the actual product that moves the needle in terms of customers.
Okay, thank you so much. So for me, I think there is a side of the business that's called joking. And so you need to, while we were doing all those buying and selling and doing products from leather, and we were just selling. And for me, that is joking. So, and the reason I called it joking is because there wasn't a real purpose for doing that. And I think it's the purpose you have that would sustain the business. And so it was when we started thinking inwards that, okay, so what can we do that would really, and so right now, our mission is really about people and the planet. And so it's not just about shoes. So so if you think we are a shoe company, then you must be very wrong, because we are a technology company. And our mission is really about inventing lifestyle technologies that help people and the planet. And so the first two things we put in mind while developing our product now is, first, the people. That would this product help people? Would this really help people? And we're also really concerned about the planet. And so this, I feel like you should not just have a static vision or a mission. It was this decade that our vision changed to that. And so that is why I feel like people need to be like water. And so nothing is really casted in stones. And so you can always reinvent your models. And so even if you can change the business totally, and that is not failure to me. I feel that is part of learning. And so once you are able to understand the pains of people, now there's a product we are working on now. And this product, what it does is that we are trying to see how we can help people relieve their pain. Because we realize that we have more people sitting, and because of the pandemic, we have more people working from home. We have people working longer hours. And so you sit for long. And so some people can sit for 3 hours in the meeting, 6 hours. And so what we're developing is another solution that can help people relieve their pains. And so for us, it's gone beyond just making shoes. And so it's providing real solutions. And so I believe that that would really help you in your design. That, okay, so will this really help people? And so once you have translated from joking, there is a joking side of the business. If you translate from joking, then you translate into your purpose, your real purpose. I feel like some people never actually realize their purpose. And you realize that you are in a particular sport for 30 years, 20 years, a decade, a big problem. So I feel like once you're able to realize the purpose for what you're doing, I guess your business is more sustainable. I guess I'm going to end there. Thank you.
No, that's fantastic. And I love that term. I'm going to steal that from you. The joking side of the business. I think that's so great. And wow, so here you are, a shoe company, and facing the adversity that the pandemic has posed in so many ways, you're able to pivot and say, look, really what we care about is the people, and we care about having an impact on these folks. What they're facing and what they're needing right now might not be shoes. It might be something that they can sit with or help kind of ergonomics while they're sitting at home during the pandemic. Was that at all a scary pivot for you guys to make? Or I mean, with the uncertainty of presenting this new product or with the new rollout, was there any amount of fear or just uncertainty on, how would our customers take to this kind of thing? And if so, how did you manage that?
Okay, yeah, so I must say that, for example, for the product we are developing now, it's not yet released, but then we are not just providing that to our immediate customers. Now, we've also assessed our customers as a lot of them are working class, and a lot of them tend to work from home nowadays. And so these are just interconnections. They are related problems, so we see ourselves as a lifestyle technology company that help people and planet. And so for us, we are just like water, whereby we can flow in any way, in any direction, but we have a purpose. We have a purpose of helping people and the planet. Now, before I talk about that, during the pandemic, in the heat of the pandemic, we came up with another idea. And the idea was because we realized that, I must say that before the pandemic came, we've been operating online. And so for me, it was really about so we had people that said that they wanted to come to our store. We said, we don't have a store. You can only see products on our website. And what you see is what you get. And so what we actually ensure that we meet up to that what you see online is what you get. So we give them the assurance that you can return the products if you don't like it. But what you see is what you get. Now, beyond that, we realized a recurrence where people return shoes to us because of inaccurate fitting. Not even the quality now, but inaccurate fitting. Then we started thinking if we could develop an application. So this application, what it does is it's called Soul Fitter. So we have a beta version now. And what it does for you is to help you scan your feet. And so you can be in India and use the app. You can just scan your feet. It captures the exact volume of your feet. And so this is one of the things we are doing that, one, for that, we are helping them to reduce the stress in placing an order for the manufacturer or the retailer. And so what we are doing again is that we are providing plugins for e-commerce platforms. So that would enable them to reduce the kind of waste or the losses they encounter. Now, that is still around our mission. We are helping people, and we're also helping the planet. And so it's really with assessing what kind of customers you're dealing with and related problems or solutions you can provide. I believe that once you identify who your customer is, I believe that you'll be able to, and don't just say, I produce phone, and that is what I keep doing. You can produce softwares that are embedded in the phones or things that are related. Now, In fact, now we are diverting into telemedicine gradually. And everything is just connected. But I believe if you are able to connect the dots, you'll be able to provide accurate solutions.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And you mentioned a couple of things that I think are really interesting to touch on, a lot of them relating to how COVID has forced you guys to be dynamic and be like water, as you're saying. Martin, what were the things about the COVID-19 pandemic that initially affected, shifted your business, or forced you guys to act like water in the same way?
Actually, COVID-19 had a very interesting effect on us. So once COVID-19 hit, a lot of schools were shut down and they moved towards online learning. And we were considering building up features that are driven towards serving that need, which had just come up. And we eventually decided against it. So the question was, were we to add a video calling feature to our application. So because we figured out now that a lot more remote learning is taking place, people using our application, it would add value. And we actually did have inputs from different users who said, hey, it would add value if you added this video calling feature. But then once we really sat down, thought about how it would change the architecture of our application, how it would change the flow as a user, how it would change even the basis of the application, we ended up deciding against adding that feature. And because and it was a tough decision because we really, either way, there was a strong argument either way to add it, especially during the need. But we figured out in the long term, we could add it at some future point if we see a stronger trend and people change kind of how they interact. But at this point, we realized, no, that's not the level of interaction that our community needs. So it was, we were faced with a decision point, and the decision point was either to go one way that is driving the immediate need that COVID has created versus a long-term roadmap, product roadmap. And we kind of chose to stick with a longer-term product roadmap because we felt that eventually things will actually get better. And as much as COVID has made some changes to our lives, normalcy will soon return. So it was kind of a bet on eventual normalcy, even though we are going to have a new normal. Things have changed, fundamentally, but we still think that ultimately, in as much as some things have changed, some things will stay the same. So it was quite an interesting rubric for us in terms of our decision making.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that is a really interesting bet you're making. And we heard from the panel earlier today that there's a lot of work that needs to be done as we shift back to this new normal. But as you said, what will that new normal look like? And I'm curious, from your perspective, how do you actually solve or plan for something that we may not necessarily know what it will look like yet?
You end up making tough decisions. And those decisions that you make, you will know the outcome of them in the long run. And that's just life, that's investing, that's making decisions that have multi-period effects. I can't say that I have any kind of magic 8-ball in terms of that's giving me that gives you some kind of prescience on such matters, but you just have to make a decision, and it depends on where your business is at, what stage you're at, or what kind of influence you're trying to make, and also listening to the ground. I mean, you have to stay agile and keep listening. And also, don't be afraid to be wrong, because you often will be wrong. So
That's good.
set your metrics right to actually get feedback if you are wrong, and react if that happens.
Yeah, the sense I'm getting here is that entrepreneurship is humbling,
Yeah.
is what I've heard.
No, it is very humbling.
Yeah.
You know, it's a journey every day, and you can't claim to have all the answers, but you kind of develop certain heuristics or core values that you follow, and you trust in them.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And maybe this question, Fela, you can take, and then back to you, Martin. You know, we've gotten a bit of insight on the problems that both of you saw that almost ran into you, and how you had to think about, okay, how to actually meet a solution with this problem, and how do I solve it in a way that consumers actually want it to be solved in, right? And so incredible work that both of you have done with your company so far. And I'm curious, what were the support systems along the way that helped you make some of these tough decisions you mentioned, Martin, or reach traction or solve some of those micro problems that you face every day? Was it a network of mentors? Was it co-founders that you heavily relied on? Were there investors that were involved at any points in your journey? And what were the role of some of those other stakeholders in helping you develop your businesses? Fela and then Martin.
Oh yeah, so thank you for the question. Yeah, I must say that I cannot discount the role of networks. And I feel like networks will really help you, and information. So, and most of this information are being done by you. You have to find out the information. Okay, let me give you an hint. Now, for maybe some people might just utilize this particular link. One of my friends, I just thought I was really very informed until a friend of mine told me that Twitter, just go on Twitter. You'll find every kind of information you're looking for. I said, Twitter, I don't know what does Twitter mean? I mean, I just know that people gist on Twitter. And what I realized is that Twitter actually has the largest repository of information in the globe, anywhere. Now, she told me to use some tags, say, search for entrepreneurship, apply, search for startup, apply, and look for the latest. You will see more than enough information. Now, if you need to be part of an incubator, you can become part of an incubator. If you will need to become part of an accelerator, you can scale your business all around the world via Twitter. And so I feel like this is one of the things that have really helped me over the time. And within a very short time, even especially during the pandemic, and this information came during that particular time. Imagine that I never knew that friend, or I took her as somebody. She is a Twitter fan, a fan of Twitter, but she doesn't use those things. She just suggested it to me that, okay, why not just go through this route? Now, there have been mentors that have helped, but I feel like most of this work needs to be done by the entrepreneur. You need to dig for this entrepreneur. You need to mine for this entrepreneur. Now, there are some things I've been part of, and those guys will just wonder, how did you get to know about this? And I said, I just mined Twitter. We're just Twitter mining. And so I do not wait for information to get to me. I mine them. So I feel like that role of actively seeking is very important. You cannot, maybe if you work in an organization, even if you work in an organization, you need to keep reinventing. But especially as a startup, I feel like those are the things. Yes, I think I've been a bit lucky too when it comes to the people I surround myself with. Because for me personally, in fact, when I was in school then, I wanted to change my course but I loved chemical engineering. I wanted to do chemical engineering. I like chemistry. But I had an mentor then, he told me that, see, fella, things will happen. Just keep doing what you're doing, things will happen. And he told me that now he was just laying an example that I worked with KPMG, PwC. Now I'm the CEO of 2 different banks. And I currently own my business and I'm doing really well with that. Don't worry, things will happen. And so it is still one of the reasons I still that just be like water. Be like water, flow with it, but make that process in the active. You need to be very active in the process. I must say that I've benefited from a lot of networks, but most of the things I got were actually what's called mined by me. I actually found those things because left to some people, for example, in a lot of African countries, I think this is one of the problems we face because you need to benchmark who your competitors are. Now, for us at Sulubata, we see ourselves as a global brand that maybe in some couple of years to come, we'll be competing with the likes of Nike, Adidas. And so we know that a lot of work needs to be done. And so if you are benchmarking yourself against somebody in your community or somebody that's not so really, I don't know, but it depends on what you want. But for me, I feel like we need to start thinking really big. And I feel like from there, we'll start getting the kind of things we really want. I think I'm going to stop there. Thank you so much.
No, that's fantastic. And we're coming into our last 9 or so minutes. I could ask you guys questions all day. But Martin, I want to take that question to you. What have been your support systems, mentors, investors, otherwise? And I have one more before we turn it over to our audience. So for folks in the audience, you can start thinking about questions that you want answered as well.
All right. So the first group that has been the most supportive, of course, is my team of co-founders. We're a team of 4 who have worked on this, and they have been the core team that has worked on building and distributing the product when we started out from the start. So I have my team of co-founders. And of course, there's the wider community. It becomes friends and family have been very helpful. As you know, friends kind of form the initial network of hires that you bring in. They it's usually a referral, a soft referral to get someone on board your team. And friends have been very helpful at that, friends and family, in terms of my network. Then there's industry subject matter experts. That's a very important resource, especially if you're going into any kind of, depending on the industry, you need to seek out these industry subject matter experts to kind of pick their brain. They're usually very helpful, and it helps to kind of, in our case, we met with a lot of educators. So we met with educators, we've talked with different universities, both locally and outside the country, to kind of get to the feel of what the subject matter experts are saying. The next resource in this day and age is we have online communities like Y Combinator has the startup school, and there are quite a few different online communities around starting up a business that you can access, and they have great resources. They give you really good advice, and you get to collate information from different areas that you're likely to find something that might fit your niche, depending on what your niche is. And yeah, those have been kind of the key resources I've leveraged early on.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And we have a little bit over 5 minutes. So folks in the audience start to think about what questions you want answered. You could submit them to the chat below or to the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen. But what I want to do now is flip that question on its head, right? So both of you just talked about what support networks have helped you along your journey. How do you think about each of your ventures in supporting the communities that you're serving? So your customers, the people on your team, but even when we think about developing both West Africa for you, Fela, or Eastern Africa, Martin, the continent more generally, what is the role of entrepreneurship or entrepreneurs in developing your communities, in your local economies? And maybe I'll start with Martin and then pass that over to Fela as we conclude this portion.
So I think that, for example, at iFunza, we believe that we have a mission which is to improve education outcomes. So that's built into our mission, that's built into how we design our product, that's built into how we distribute our product. And we believe that when we get those outcomes, those outcomes will be beneficial for us in the education space. And I think if you show me a well-functioning society, I'll show you a well-functioning education system. So I think you need to have a strong education system, and we believe we're actually working on a very big problem that would that is going to help improve the community as a whole, regardless of which community it is anywhere in the world, whether you're in Taiwan or in Nairobi. Now, in terms of other entrepreneurs, I think whatever you're doing, you're creating value. If you're creating value, you should try to be aligned to a impact-driven purpose, because that will allow for that creates a higher level of sustainability, I think, if you achieve it. It's not easy to achieve it, but it creates a virtuous cycle that can make your enterprise sustainable for the really long term. Now, if you're thinking about having a company that is growing for years or hundreds of years, decades, it has to have a really sustainable mission. And those ones, I think, kind of come from creating positive social impact. So I think entrepreneurs play a great role, an important role in improving circumstances in their communities and their and the world in general. So it's, you know, it has the potential. I'll say that they do have, entrepreneurship does have the potential to for a lot of social good.
Yeah. Fela?
Okay, thank you so much. Let me start with the university system. I must say that first, I feel the university system needs to be kind of sort of first pathway for entrepreneurship in our, even for everybody around. Because what I realized is, for example, even around the world, not just in Africa, I realized that a lot of our universities, the lecturers or even our professors do not understand entrepreneurship. Now, if you are being asked to do a project, you want to do another form of theory, maybe, especially in Africa, we do a lot of backdated projects. And so it's a big problem, because I feel like a university system should see the economic part or the impact, the economic impact of a project before a project is being done. I feel that that is how we can especially build Africa. Because we need to start saying, okay, so how will this project add value to the community? How will this drive economic impact? And so that is what we are not seeing. Now, as an entrepreneur, I feel like for the community, you need to be a kind of source of motivation. People need to believe again. Now, I was trying to ask a lady out, and she thought that you sell shoes. There is a very little probability of you making it. Now, she didn't accept, actually. She didn't accept because, and sadly for me, then I didn't have any money. And so it was so unfortunate that I realized that so it wasn't really about that. And beyond just that particular time, maybe in about 6 to 1 month, a lot of things have transformed. And so we need to be, and we have more people believing in what we are doing now, that, well, okay, I can actually sell shoes and actually be great. I can actually find different way of doing things. Now, what they see us at, they see innovation in what we do. And so I believe that that motivation is very, very, very strong. We need to start having more learned people in the field of entrepreneurship that would be able to drive these changes. I feel like the university system itself should be a core, a seat of entrepreneurship, but sadly it is not. And so, as for those of us who have probably been able to realize all of these facts, we need to be able to constantly motivate this. There are some things I do for free, especially some talks. I do them for free because I realize that some of these people cannot even afford what I need to collect. And so those things are usually done for free. And I feel like we need more people like that. We need more people that would that actually succeed in all of this, all of their parties. Because if you don't succeed, that's another problem. You become a laughing stock. But it doesn't mean that is the end. You can still come back again. But I feel like if you are able to succeed even in the little things, I believe you'll be able to carry on the whole community itself. Beyond just even giving out money or advisory, they see you as a role model. And so your success is very important to their growth. And so if you do not succeed, then the society too, they'll be looking elsewhere. They feel like, well, it didn't make it in that field. Let me consider other field. And so if you're able to make it in your field, I believe that that's really very important. I feel that's why I feel like entrepreneurship education is really very key. Because if you do not have an education, if you do not have the proper education, you just make money for a very short time, not a sustainable one. And so I feel like that part where you even give back, I feel that giving back might not necessarily be giving mentorship or you giving physical stuff. I believe that goes into even your own success. I believe that what really drives growth. Thank you.
That is fantastic. Thank you both so much. And you know, to your point, Fela, young entrepreneurs listening in, this is your moment. As Fela is saying, plenty of challenges to be tackled and plenty of opportunities to inspire others and to be beacons in your community. So thank you both. I now want to switch over to questions from the audience, and we have a couple coming in already. Firstly, Martin, I'll start with you and then back to you, Fela. We have a question coming in about building your team. And so Martin, if you, as both of you guys answer these questions, tell us how many co-founders you have on board, and then maybe other employees that you have. How did you actually find those people? And then how did you go from, okay, I know you exist, to they are now a part of your team and you're working together?
Okay, so that's an interesting question. One of my co-founders, Caroline, I've known for 16, for very many years. That was a quick, wonderful decision to make. But with the other two people on our team, I met them I met them 3 years ago. And we actually started out by working on something together. So we kind of worked on something small earlier on, and I kind of got used to working with them. So I saw that we work together well and we can create a product well, because creating a product has a whole process that's tied to it. And the parts need to fit together for the product to actually be successful. So it's very important that you're working together as a team in designing, delivering, and distributing the product. And each part needs to work very closely with the other. So working together was, what we started with. With my other co-founder, Caroline, we had started another company before together. So we actually were very much on the same page with regards to the other two co-founders, Marcos and Danny, on our team. We worked on building something together first, and then we saw that we can work together well from a product building perspective. As we started to get the idea of building up iFunza and kind of crystallized what our mission was, it was very natural to actually work with people that we had a working relationship with. That became a natural extension. So we had already built up the trust factor, which is very important. You need to have a high trust within your team and a good working relationship. In terms of productivity, you improve each other's productivity. So sometimes you kind of have to find the right pieces that fit together because you want to improve the productivity of the whole. So sometimes the easiest way is to have done work together to know that, because it's very hard. And I'm sorry to say, we haven't yet solved that problem conclusively. Even the interview process, it becomes a risk. Even regardless of how well we consider the interview process to be.
Yeah.
I don't think that problem has been kind of solved.
Sure.
So I'm a big fan of actually working on something together early on and getting that kind of relationship.
I like that, finding people who you've already worked with, maybe you're in your network, you kind of can already have a relationship. And Fela, I would throw this question to you, but we've been flooded by a lot more questions than we're anticipating. So I think in the sake of time, I'll pivot to another question we're getting, which is about growth and the potential upside.
Let me try something a little.
Okay, sure. Yeah, just real quickly, and then I'll throw another exciting question we have at you.
Yeah, I must say that for every company, you need to see yourself as a tech company. And so even if you sell clothes, or even if you are an artist, you need to see yourself as a tech company. And that would really determine how fast you grow. Now on your team, you need somebody who is like a developer, and somebody who understands programming, who understands design. You need somebody that can also do design aside the programmer. Then you also need a marketer. And so do not do any pity party while you're trying to hire a team, or because you know somebody so much. The truth is that for you to really grow, I've been part of more than 20 ideas that never started because of the people. For example, you have like 10 marketers on a project, and there are 10 people, 10 marketers. That's a big problem. So you need to find people with complementary skill sets. So because that is what will really drive you to sustainability. Let me stop there. Thank you.
No, I think that's fantastic. And I think kind of highlights a thread that you've been pulling for us all along, which is, as you think about developing your business, it's crucial the role that technology plays in your development, whether that's ideating on a product, whether that's thinking about manufacturing the product, distributing the product. So I think that's a really key insight. And a question that I'll throw at you that we're getting from the audience here about growth and the potential upside of African business, right? So I think for a long time, there's been a narrative that, you know, entrepreneurship is this thing out of like Silicon Valley in California, or is out of certain hubs in the world. But what we're seeing is that doesn't mean entrepreneurship is exclusive to any geography. And we've seen the acquisition of Paystack, and we see multi-million-dollar companies coming out of Africa. Fela, could you talk to us about the unique advantages of being an African-based company, and how you see future companies going forward, whether you see future unicorns coming out of the continent, whether you see future major acquisitions? I'd be curious about your perspective on that.
Okay, thank you so much. First, I must tell you, to be real, I feel that in the entrepreneurship space, I feel like we are fortunate. First, to start with, as Africans, because I feel like a lot of these funds, one, are not even getting there. And so it's difficult accessing funds. But then I feel like that is the role of technology in what you're doing, and where you are able to access unlimited funds from anywhere in the world. And some of these angel investors or VCs really want to fund, but they do not know people. They do not have access to these people. And I think it's now left to you as the entrepreneur to start looking for these guys. And so I feel like, first, as I said, because in a lot of our countries in Africa, we have a lot of people with very low income. And so if you had invented iPhone in Africa, you might not, I'm not sure you would really grow as big as that in the US, because I feel because of the disposable income people have. And so it's really very important that we should consider other things. Like, for example, the reason why fintech is really growing in Africa is, I realize that we have a lot of people in Africa that do not have money. And so they want to save money. While they want to save money, they want to, so things like fintech will sell. And so you can readily access loans, or you can readily save money in a kind of bank online. And those are the things that really drive Africa at this point. At this point, if you are selling things of very, that will take for high income earners, then people see it as luxury. And for example, it's a big problem we're still facing there. And I'm not sure, I believe that with innovation and with constant growth, I believe that perspective or that situation was going to change. Yes, talking about unicorns, yes, we've had a few that have gone out of Africa, and I feel like, well, for us at Sulubata, we are hoping that we'll become one of those unicorns that will grow out of Africa in a couple of years. And so we have a kind of vision, a target, a goal by 2024 that we want to be a unicorn. And so I believe that there are other high-thinking or far-reaching or thoughtful people too. I think the vision is very important. And so even in our institution, we need to start letting people know that your dream is not limited to a scope. You can become whatever you want to become. And so and that really starts with the people you benchmark against. If you keep benchmarking against people who in their lifetime have earned within maybe their 30 years of doing business, what they've earned throughout is $50 million, then you will not really grow as fast as you can. And so, and that's why I feel like the role of technology has a big role to play. I feel like we can start from there by infusing technology and actually really dreaming big. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's fantastic. And we're coming up to the last 5 or so minutes of the panel. Martin, another question for you that I'm getting from the audience. What are some of the, we mentioned the business challenges, right? Finding your problem, finding product market fit, being able to scale. What are some of the personal challenges that entrepreneurs, that founders of companies face? And then for our young entrepreneurs that are watching this, what are some of the tips or advice that you would have in overcoming those challenges? And then maybe kind of general tips and advice for young entrepreneurs that are starting their journey?
I would say there are times when the journey is kind of lonely, so it's good to actually kind of get a core team, have a team to help kind of balance you out and also kind of bounce off the different emotional highs and lows that you go through. So that would be a very key word of advice I would give is just first focus on building your team. Then you can kind of focus on building, a great product and a great company eventually. In terms of things, cycles are getting shorter and shorter. So at this point in time, I know people, it's become a cliched phrase, you have to be agile, but you kind of have to be agile because cycles are getting shorter and shorter, and you have to be able to change your product or change what you have in the market within a short time. Like I said, like I was telling you the story about the COVID, when COVID hit. So you do have to be agile, but also make that tough decision. So quickly recap, just great team, be agile. So whatever the world throws at you, you can accommodate.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And real quick, are there any resources, accelerator programs, either at the university level or elsewhere, or other resources that young entrepreneurs who are in Kenya or Eastern Africa can look for that you're aware of? And then Fela, I'd love to flip the question to you.
Or resources, yeah, there are quite a few incubators, and there are quite a few venture firms. I'd love to share that list. I don't know if I should, I can get a more comprehensive list, but I know I don't want to necessarily, but there are a lot of good accelerators around and a lot of good venture firms.
Yeah,
so
fantastic.
It's definitely a list. Great.
And maybe, Phil, I'd love to ask you this question as we kind of wrap up, but Martin, if you're able to drop any names in the chat, I'm sure our audience would love to get those gems from you. But Fela, any advice that you would have for young entrepreneurs as they seek to overcome personal challenges, business challenges in their journey? And then also, are there any resources in Nigeria or in West Africa that you can name drop for our folks that are attending?
Well, I must say that, like Martin said the other time, that these journeys can be very lonely. And so you must be able to shop for that. So at times when people might feel you are really doing well, whereas you are so dying inside, so that causes a lot of depression for you personally. And people see that, wow, this guy is everywhere, they're doing a lot of sales, they're doing a lot, whereas you're suffering. In fact, you might even be losing. And so at those points, you need to be able to get yourselves together. It's not so easy. But then I feel like, for me personally, I receive a lot of failure responses from a lot of people, especially investors. And so it doesn't mean that is the end. And so I feel like what I do to buffer those things is that I tend to assess more than enough investors. So in a day alone, since last year, we've actually been seeking about 3 million. We haven't gotten $3 million. And so we got some portion, but we haven't gotten 3 million. And so since last year, I've been applying to investors, reaching out to investors personally, at least 3 of them in a day since last year. And so that was before the COVID-19. That was like in January. Till now, I'm still doing that. So I still do 3 per day. And so just look at the numbers. So a lot of them will tell you no, maybe it's just like 5 of them. And so if the 5 can answer you, maybe that might do you some good. So I feel like you must be able to buffer all those failures, but make sure that you've done more than enough things that those failures do not really mean a lot. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I think that's fantastic. And unfortunately, that wraps up the end of our New Ventures competition panel. Thank you both so much for volunteering your insights, for volunteering your time. And I'd also like to take this moment to thank the Africa Summit team, who spent a lot of time organizing, planning. 1 million emails were sent, and thank you guys all for putting this together for us. Also want to thank the attendees who have joined, who've been super attentive. You asked some fantastic questions. And I also want to thank the University of Princeton for hosting Africa Summit. And we're looking forward to many more as we continue to build conversations around the continent. So thank you both so much. I think we'll be transitioning into our next panel of the day, which is focusing on youth on the